Welcome to the Real Triathlon Podcast. I'm your host, Garrick Lowen, here with Nicholas Chase and Jackson Laundry.
Welcome back to the Real Triathlon Podcast. I feel like I've been out of the mix for so long. I've only been gone for 2 weeks where I haven't done any of these recordings. But Skye, you and I have been trying to get together I've been trying to get with you. My schedule's been effed, but I appreciate you making time. So that's our number one. Awesome. Welcome back. Bringing Skye on. I've been wanting to hang out with you for a while.
Yeah, this is fun. I think you reached out to me right before I was going on a trip to Michigan, and then you went overseas, and then I think you went to Michigan, the same place. So, yeah.
I guess I didn't know people vacation to Michigan unless you had to go there. So, first and foremost, thank you for visiting my home state.
You're welcome. I never would have gone there if it weren't for my family planning that. So, yeah.
Wasn't it pretty like you were?
Yeah.
You were. It's like even over by Frankfurt, where the 70.3 course is, Traverse City area. It's actually really hilly and great riding.
Yeah. No, literally, as we were driving, I was thinking, I wish I could ride this right now. It looks really, really good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was very pretty, really fun.
And not so hot as it's been in Utah, which even up north, it's been hot where you are.
Yeah, I actually thought of you today, knowing that we were going to be chatting later. I went to go get my mail and I was like, man, it's just so freaking hot out here. And it's even hotter where you are. So, yeah.
And it's even hotter in Phoenix and Vegas than where I
Yeah,
am.
that's crazy. But you just don't go outside.
Yeah, after a certain time of the day, or like you just get your first biker run session done when it's like before 10 a.m. and then you swim indoors later on. Like that's how I have to do it.
Yeah, I obviously this summer is very different for me, but like last summer, if I had a quality run or something, I would make sure to kind of get it done earlier. But this summer, I'm just simply not training 3 times a day. So
yeah, and that's
I don't have to.
also a big topic of what we need to speak about, Skye. Like
Yeah,
some
let's talk.
amazing life changes happening in your world. How many months pregnant are you?
Okay, so I'm 21 and a half weeks, which is like a week over the halfway mark. So I guess I'm like 4.5 months pregnant, 5 months. The months are more confusing for me now because now I just know the weeks. But
I just want somebody to start being like, I'm 185 days pregnant. Like do it in days just to really confuse me even more.
Oh, that would make it even more complicated. But yeah, the weeks thing is so funny because I would talk to other women who are like, "Oh yeah, I'm this many weeks pregnant." And I'm like, "Huh? Like
Yeah.
how many weeks is pregnancy?"
Yeah.
And now I've got it dialed.
And the only reason I know any months in any region is because normally I have athletes where I'm like, "Hey, you're 12 weeks away from your race." Like, and so I kind of know
Oh, right.
I have gotten that term. It's like when you get like well versed with kilometers to miles conversions, and
Yes.
we can do those things.
Yes. True.
So over halfway, and you're capturing so much of your journey on social media.
Yeah.
You've started your podcast, which I want to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
But first, like, what is the FOMO like when you're not doing what you're always used to doing?
It's interesting because there is some FOMO, but it's not too bad. I mean, yesterday, like watching Placid and stuff, I had some FOMO just because I miss the feeling of pushing myself and competing and even just the feeling of being incredibly fit. Like it's a good feeling to be able to go run a marathon at the end of an Ironman. And I'm very far from that right now. So otherwise, I would say the FOMO is not too bad. I'm really enjoying the break, the freedom. So, I mean, it's pros and cons, right?
Well, it's like the best COVID time frame where you're not really doing anything for any extreme purpose. Like, but
Yeah.
but you have such a big purpose. I think that's really what makes time off validated, is when the purpose just outweighs like funerals,
Yeah,
weddings,
true.
moving, all of those three things. Like you cannot train as much at all. And pregnancy is one of those things. You just can't. So what else are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say pregnancy is next level to all of those other things because it lasts 9 months, then not to mention the postpartum period, which I'm not even till like the the thick of it yet, right? Like I'm not massive yet, even though I feel massive compared to my normal self. Um, I have not had the baby yet, so I'm still sleeping and living on my own schedule, and my body's not recovering from all labor and everything. So yeah, there's a lot to come still, but it's all really exciting. And I think that's the other thing for me when you ask about FOMO. When I have FOMO, I have to remember how I felt kind of the last or 2023 or so. Like I've said this on my podcast, I just didn't feel the satisfaction that I was feeling before. Um, when you're super motivated and you're super driven by these goals and whatever it is, you're happy to miss every family function. You're happy to just devote your entire life, and any result is just like the best day ever. You get the podium, the win, whatever it is that you're shooting for. And I just wasn't feeling that as much, right? Like I would win a race or get a great result and it wasn't as satisfying. I mean, it was fun and it was satisfying, but it wasn't the same. So I could just tell it was time for there to be more in my life than just triathlon. So yeah, whenever I have those FOMO moments, I just think back to like, yeah, but I wasn't enjoying myself the way I want to be if I'm devoting my entire life to triathlon. So I'm excited to come back with like a whole new purpose,
I love
honestly.
that. I love
Yeah.
that so much. I think once you've been in the sport enough and as many years have gone by, you need a period of rejuvenation. I think
Yeah.
men and women experience it differently. Women, I have noticed it when there is a birth at play, that makes a massive change in drive, performance. And then men, sometimes it actually takes away from their ability and their firepower because it's such a it's like a total new devotion to another
Mhm.
beyond your selfish act of being a male triathlete. Like it's just different. Except for obviously Sam Long, who's just been slaughtering it as a father.
Killing it, man,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I love watching the changes that we all go through. And I think that's probably the coolest part is now there's all these like young, talented individuals who I'm like, they're not even thinking about kids or any, they're like 24, they have,
Yeah.
all they're doing is riding that high of just the next race, the next adventure. And now as we're in the middle of our, career, or even for me, like the probably last few years of my career, it's just interesting to see what we keep going for me, especially like I didn't have kids of my own. I just got married and started my own situation into kids. And that kind of was mine. Wasn't
Mhm.
the same, but it's changed a lot of my perspectives too. And so that's probably why you've also been, you're obviously not one to have idle hands. You're building and driving towards something, and that where the podcast came from.
The podcast I had thought about doing for even at the beginning of 2023, I wanted to start it. I would be like in bed at night thinking about all the things I could be sharing or talking about. Or then every time something major happened in the sport, I'm like, dang, I should have had the podcast. I could have given my opinions or shared and talked about it. But I last year was its own journey for me, and also it's hard to manage all the things when you're racing full time, training full time, and you know what it's like.
Exhausted
So
full time.
yeah, well, yeah, and I guess the biggest hurdle for me was just actually starting it. And I think as well, last year was kind of like a confidence rebuilding year for me, just from the experiences I'd had in 2022, leaving my coach and all these things. I was just kind of rebuilding Skye. And so I think that was part of it too, is I kind of just wanted to be more to myself. So then when I was feeling, more myself, I get pregnant, then I think, okay, well, now's a perfect time. Being an athlete and not racing, you just become irrelevant so fast. Or even an athlete who is racing, but if you're not like podium, then you're just not relevant. So, and not that a podcast guarantees your relevance, but I think it just helps people follow the journey more, and then it's not just about the results. But genuinely, I've always wanted to share more, and podcasting just seemed like the easiest route because I mean, you've probably done it all too, but the YouTube thing, then someone has to be there to film you and then they need to edit it. And then it's like music to the video and the sounds and the color and just the quality of people's YouTubes these days. I don't know. I was like, this isn't sustainable for me. Um, So podcasting seemed like the best one, and I've enjoyed it. I mean, I've done a lot of solo episodes where I just get on and talk.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, yeah. So most of mine so far have actually, I mean, I think I have 6 episodes, and 4 of them are solo episodes, just me talking through everything. I mean, I kind of organize, plan it out before, at least like major topics that I want to talk about or experiences. And then yeah, I just go like 30
That's
to
fun.
60 minutes. It is fun. But then also I'm starting to bring on more guests. Um, I had my, Megan Foley on, my training partner. I had Holly Lawrence on last week. I've already recorded with Laura Gruden, Sam Long's
Ah,
fiance. So planning to have Rinny on soon. And then, I mean, I just have a list of all the people who I want to talk to. And it may seem like a pregnancy mom podcast, but it's also
it
just
should
like,
be.
yeah, but I think it'll evolve with me, right? Like, this is what I'm experiencing right now. So I'm very inspired by all of the women who have done this before me. And I'm very inspired by even the men. Like, Sam Long is very inspiring to me, how he has balanced fatherhood with top performance. But I'm just so curious about the dynamics and how people make it work. Like, do they have nannies? Do they just juggle things? Do the wives just agree, like, yeah, I'll just do everything? So those are kind of the questions that I like to ask, that I want to ask more people, because I think it's really fascinating. So yeah, that's kind of the scoop on the podcast. It's about me and my journey, but it's also me exploring other athletes who have gone through what I'm going through, or yeah, it's just keeping it real at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And I think even if it is, this is the first time I think I've had one of those couple moments that you just mentioned, where it's like, I just want to get on there and start talking about how I feel about certain things.
Yeah,
I think,
do it.
and I think because we are so passionate about our sport, and we see a lot of things happening in our sport that don't get the full story. It's all hearsay, social media. It doesn't tell a really, complete picture. And I feel
Yeah.
like there's a lot of holes. As much as data and communication is available, I feel like that makes it less reliable because it's coming from everywhere and oftentimes not the source. So
Yeah.
I really do like the opportunity to just speculate a little bit more with some more facts, or at least bring people on to tell the story. Like, there's been, since I went to Roth, I feel like so much has happened. Like, week after week, there's just been madness. And I have to even like rewind back to remember it. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can't.
I don't need Roth seems like ages ago.
Yeah, that's why, and that's to your, like, the results. It's not just results, because like that, the result of the world record getting broken by Magnus, like someone already broke the
Mhm.
bike course record again. Like, there's,
Yeah.
the results are not the meat and potatoes of the sport. It's the people, the experiences, the relativity of your
Yeah.
story. And I think you going through your experiences and talking about it, there's how many women in triathlon who need to hear what you have to say. And that is so good.
Yeah, and that's actually been a really cool part. I mean, I can see the listenership on my podcast, and I think it's almost 80% women. And I've even had women reach out to me, many women reach out and say, I was really hesitant to listen to your podcast because I have never had kids, or I'm not pregnant right now, or I'm never going to have kids. And so they just weren't sure if they'd even like it. And they're like, wow, I really love it. It's really fascinating. And I just love your perspective. Cause it's, again, yes, I'm talking a lot about my pregnancy, but it's also a lot about just, yeah, life as a woman and a professional triathlete and going through this big change. So that's that's another thing, is just being an example, I guess. Not that I want to be like, oh, look, I'm this example. I think it's even women who have had babies and come back, they're examples to me. And I really value that. Like, they inspired me to have the guts to be like, yeah, I'm going to get pregnant and come back.
Yeah.
Cause I used to think I would never want to come back after pregnancy. Cause I'm like, oh, that seems crazy. But now it's like, no, no way. I'm coming back for sure. And it's because I'm inspired by these other women. So kind of giving that back, I guess, hopefully.
No, you most definitely will be. And that, what I've noticed is the reach and the impact. Like, I think we've been doing this show for over 5 years now. And the amount of, like, I think about it, the amount of repeat messages that I get from people just on social media, just commenting on all the things that I do and creating a relationship with me just through that. like
Yeah.
there's a lot of connection out there, and these
Yeah.
stories, they're very human, and we've
Yeah.
always feel like we have to be this representative of what we should and want to be, and it's not very present. Like we just don't experience things the way we used to with all this distraction. So I think it's a grounding opportunity for you, especially getting in touch with how you really feel because you're talking
Yeah.
about it and it's authentic. And look at how many pro female triathletes or pro women athletes have done amazing things after giving childbirth. Like that's
Yeah.
freaking, it's so cool. We can't even do it. And like, it's so
I
like FOMO on that.
yeah, yeah. How's the FOMO?
Yeah. I can't
No.
do something.
I will say actually, it's crazy how much my perspective has changed since getting pregnant because I talk about this on my podcast too, but like I never was the woman or the girl who was like, I love babies. Like I never babysat. I hated babysitting. Still do. Like, don't ask me to watch your kids. But like I never longed to be pregnant. I was never super excited to be a mom, but I always knew that's something I wanted. I knew that's something I wanted, but it wasn't something obviously that was so pressing for me that it was the first thing I did as soon as I, married Matt. Like, no, we've we've been married almost 9 years. So, but my perspective has just changed completely on like pregnancy. First of all, the appreciation for the female body to even freaking do this. And then so much more appreciation for the women who have done it. Like it's just one of those things where like unless you've done it, you literally have no idea. And
Yeah.
again, I am only halfway through my pregnancy, so there's still so much more that I'm gonna be like, I can't believe this is how we all got to Earth. Like, this is
Yeah.
crazy.
And
So,
to think so many people did it without as much support and without as much
yeah,
respect and dignity going through the processes and being
yeah,
having different expectations from society. So it's just
yeah,
a cool time to, you know, be a male and a female in a relationship with a baby
yeah,
because everyone's doing everything. Like there's no roles that are just like
yeah,
need anymore. So it's super cool. Like we're all playing ball on that level at least.
yeah, yeah.
So that is incredible. And I'm sure you can all listen to Skye a bunch more on her podcast about it. But I just, for my own reckoning, like what has been the most challenging aspect of the evolution of your body in trying to do things that you want to do? And now you're getting to the point where you're like, maybe I can't do this for another month or I got to get it all out. What are you not able to do that you really want to do?
Um, all I really wanna do, like, my biggest goal through pregnancy is just be able to stay active every day, and what I thought I would be able to do versus what I'm doing has definitely changed because then I thought, "Oh, yeah, if I train, like, 15 to 20 hours a week, that'd be pretty good." And then I quickly realized maybe 10 to 15 is more realistic for my energy levels and
Yeah.
if I want to accomplish anything else during the day. Um, it's a trade-off, right? Like, if I go ride my bike 3 hours, I'm probably gonna be really tired and not gonna be able to go edit a podcast, for example, or I I won't be able to train much the next day. So, I really I think the biggest thing for me is just not having a lot of expectations on myself. I just wanna be able to stay active, but I've also accepted that if it comes down to me just walking Winston for an hour every day, then that'll be good enough too, but I don't think it'll be that way. I guess sometimes it's not that I'm like, "Dang, I wish I could do that," but I guess sometimes I miss, oh, going for a 90-minute run and then no consequence, right? Like a 90-minute run, I would hardly even count as a long run, and now if I run 90 minutes, I might be okay throughout the whole process, but then I'm either probably gonna be really tired or sore, like my body just is so much sore and easily sore and fatigued, so it's really just a huge adjustment and just letting go of expectations, but nothing's like getting me down, right? Like
No, that's awesome.
I've I've wanted to be able to ride my bike through the summer because I love riding my bike outside and I'm still doing that. And yeah, I'm not going on these epic like 6-hour bike rides, but I don't have to do it to enjoy it. And the other thing is there's a lot of things that I love to do, say like a 90-minute 2-hour run or a 5-hour ride. I love to do those and yes, maybe a little bit of me wishes I could, but the consequence of doing that now for me is just not worth it. So I don't miss it that much because I'm like, well, I would rather feel alive for the rest of the day
Yeah.
than than not. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Just it's really day by day.
So it's not even at all relative to a mindset of like injury where you really like I would I would say this like I'll punch a baby if I can go run on this ACL.
Yeah, I think it's totally different because for me, it's like Holly and I talked about this on my podcast.
Yeah.
But we talked about how, like, it's not about us. It's about our baby. Like, we're growing another human. And so you just realize so quickly too how much it requires of you. And I've just noticed how much it requires of me mentally and physically. Just it's so much. And I just that's the focus right now. And the other thing is, like, I'm not focused at all on getting back to racing. Like, yes, I am going to return to race. And yes, I have some goals for next year. But look, I have to finish growing this baby and then I have to birth it out. Like, all I'm focused on right now is this process and labor and delivery. So I think that makes it easier too when there's things about me that I miss, or things about my old triathlon life that I kind of miss right now. It's like, well, it's just not even the focus. So
Well, we're very logical at our core as triathletes. We have to be. And so when we have a definite answer to a problem, like no ambiguity, you just can't. Like
yeah,
then why wallow and feel suffer anything like that?
exactly. And it's just, I know this time is not the time for me to be pushing the limits of my body with swim, bike, run. Like, it's just simply not. I'm doing it for the sake of staying healthy and happy because that's what it that's what at the end of the day triathlon does for me. Obviously, I also make a living doing it and I love racing and I love being competitive, but when that part of my life's over too, it's going to be about staying happy and healthy. So, I'm just kind of getting a taste of it right now.
Yeah, it's awesome. And when was your last race?
I raced T100 Miami
Yep.
beginning of March.
Okay. So a
Yeah.
lot has happened in the triathlon world since then. You've
Yeah.
just been consuming triathlon content. You've been just taking it all in. How do you feel like the sport is evolving? Like, I want to get kind of lead you in a couple directions here. Like
Yeah,
at
yeah.
at one point, PTO was like this organization for the athletes, and
Yeah.
we're gonna have this union where we're taking care of you guys. We're gonna provide these things, and now that's gone. Like they're not
Yeah.
for the athletes, for the union. Like they're just like we are a race organization now. We're putting on these events, so that's changed. And I want to know how you feel about the progression of T100 and PTO, and
Yeah.
then the Ironman series. I feel like has just changed the face of what Ironman was I don't know. I felt like they lost some steam. So I think those two
Yeah.
entities, from taking a step back, how do you feel like the evolution of PTO T100 has kind of gone for or
Yeah.
against? And, let's be critical here and there and give kudos where we can. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
also how you feeling about the Ironman?
Okay. So we'll start with T100. Obviously, I was involved with PTO as a board member, and you're right. Like, it went from we are athlete organization, athlete owned, supporting everyone. Like, I think who didn't get a check during COVID from the PTO. Um, and it has evolved to it's a race organization. I don't think it I don't think it won't try to get back to being more of an athlete organization, but the reality is being that athlete owned for the athlete, give everyone a paycheck every year isn't or wasn't necessarily financially sustainable for the PTO, which as a business minded person, I understand that because if you're not making money, you can't just be giving out millions of dollars every year and expect things to just have these billionaires keep handing out money to you. Like, it's not a charity, right?
But they
So
didn't
I
have to
think
give out
I
so
know.
much.
No, you're right. You're right. It wasn't perfect. I mean, it came in really hot. It came in at a good time where athletes really needed the support, but then I think it also really sucked them dry.
Yeah.
So I think right now, yes, I know they probably pissed a lot of athletes off in fact, I know they did, pissed a lot of athletes off, especially some of the or most of the athletes probably outside of even the top 20, right? Like, I think everyone in some way, shape, or form has felt a bit burned. But I also understand that they have to do what they have to do to be a viable business to stay around, to even be anything for the
Absolutely.
foreseeable future. So I think what they've done well is trying to focus on what they actually want to be right now, because I always had the feeling too, like when I was on the athlete board, I loved what they were doing, but I got frustrated when it felt like we were trying to be everything to everyone. And you can't do that when you're when you don't have unlimited funds, you don't have unlimited resources. And of course, I wanted to see the PTO, T100, whatever, succeed. So I do appreciate that they've had hard conversations or, you know, upset athletes and said, "Look, this is what we're doing." And what they're doing isn't perfect either, right? Like, we can poke holes in everything from this year. I mean, I think they will and need to really change the contract thing, because I don't think that worked as well as they anticipated. I also think they probably need to increase the field size, because it's hard enough for them to even get like 20 athletes, or maybe not the field size, but the contract pool or something. Like, something needs to change so that the fields are a little more full, I think. There's a lot of things, but at the same time, as an athlete who has a contract and who did race once, the athlete experience there is awesome. Like, I'm super grateful that I have a contract, even though I'm not racing now, but even that one race that I got to do, like, and even the races last year before we were all contracted were amazing. Like, it is all about the pros. No offense to the age groupers, but it's awesome to have the course to ourselves. And um, there's so much they're doing right. But yeah, I mean, I even have my own opinions of like the social media. Like, I think the social media could be a bit more fun and lighthearted and show more personality versus just like, let's kill everyone and crush everyone on race day. Like, it's so focused on the rivalries that I almost think, hey, let's also focus on the fun side of people's personalities. Or yeah. So did I answer your question?
You did. And just
Yeah.
to kind of like kind of summarize, like
Yeah.
I do agree with you that these companies have to adapt, especially with the global crisis that happened, and now
Yeah.
the economy being so wishy-washy and no one being able to afford what they used to. So
Yeah.
things have changed quite a bit from investment standpoint. So I get it. And those hard conversations, like they've had four different products over like 4 or 5 years. Like they've changed a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think the biggest discredit that had happened to the PTO in the T100 series is the contracted athlete situation, because
Yeah.
you're seeing there should have been a lot more tying to a particular series if you're going to dish out such large sums of money. It broke my heart to see some athletes pull out of San Francisco and then the next weekend go race Nice.
I
Um,
totally agree.
and there's reasons for everything, and they're defendable reasons, of course, but at the end of the day, these organizations need to demand more out of the professional level of this sport if they're going to highlight it in this way. So that for me,
And
the biggest
sorry.
problem. No, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I think if they're going to offer contracts, there needs to be greater consequences for not meeting your contractual obligation. And look, if they don't want to have those strict guidelines, then maybe don't pay as much and make the prize money more appealing. Because I will say, like, even having a contract for someone like me who is I never say never, but who's probably never going to win a T100 race, like, I knew going into it, okay, well, I am actually leaving a lot on the table by doing this, because if I go win all the Ironman series, that means I'm winning Ironmans. That means I'm getting sponsor bonuses from the Ironmans. And that means I'm going to get a really big end of year check from the Pro Series. So what I'm saying is, even for someone like me, it was kind of like, wow, the prize money's not that appealing at all, right? Like, really, what I'm signing for is the challenge and the experience. And yes, the income security, because there is still that security,
Yes,
but um
and the
the
prestige.
yeah, the prestige, all of it, the exposure, like, there's so many benefits to being a T100 athlete. But I do think as athletes, not that we're driven by prize money, but it's especially with how it's been in the past with Ironman, like the appeal of prize money, I enjoy it. Like I am not that I'm sitting there necessarily doing math when I'm on the race course. I mean, sometimes I have, but
Yeah.
but I think the prize money is a way of feeling rewarded for your efforts. So I think somehow they need to balance the contracts with better prize money because last year with the PTO tour when there was no contracted athletes, you're still there. All the best are there because there's so much prize money and we're all so driven and it was it was almost just as cool, if not cooler, to go home. Like, I remember I was, I think, 14th at the PTO Canadian Open, which was stacked.
Hmm.
And this was 2022, but I still went home with like
8 or 9 grand, right?
I think it might have been 11 even.
Yeah.
Like it was a very respectable payday for a 14th place finish, but that to me shows more, okay, well, that's the value of these races, right?
Yes.
Like when everyone's here, I mean, it's just like world champs. I've always thought this about Kona. It's like, how can I be top 10 in the world? And I think like if you're 10th, I think maybe you get $10,000 from Kona,
Yeah.
which that sounds like a lot, but not when the trip itself costs um 5 to 10 grand in itself, depending how
Yeah.
much your flights
Sometimes
are.
more.
Exactly, and not to mention that you like, so you're maybe barely covering your costs, but then it's like, "Okay, well, now am I actually making money to pay my bills at home, and I just spent my entire year focused on this race." So, yeah, I think a deeper prize purse, is more intriguing to me personally, so, yeah.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I think that that opens the door for a lot more fight. It makes the race
Yeah,
more valiant when you do overcome obstacles and fight onward for that next position, that next step up. So I agree. Like the balance between salaries, like the biggest problem we have in our sport right now is getting to all these races is expensive.
so
So
expensive.
so even if they just covered travel, lodging, meals in a stipend or something, like that
Yeah,
should be pretty good. And for the opportunity to walk away with 50 grand for fifth place, a
yes.
million dollar purse for men and women. Like I think
Yeah.
that's insanely cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that would be more appealing to me, like, okay, what's the average cost for the athletes to go to all these races? That's how much the contract's gonna be, and then maybe if you're Lucy Charles and super high profile, then yeah, maybe
an extra
maybe you'll get a
30 or
little
50 grand or something.
yeah, like, you'll get a little something extra. I respect that athletes have value, but I also yeah, I think there's a better way to do it, and to make it even more appealing for the wild card athletes, because that's the other thing with the series as it's been, is there's been so many wild card athletes brought in, and these poor athletes, like,
2 weeks
look,
notice.
2 weeks notice, so then their plane tickets are gonna be through the roof, and I think the PTO gives them, like, $1,000 plus accommodation. I don't know because I haven't been a wild card, but it's something, but you could still barely make a profit off that, right? If because then the minimum prize money is 2,500. So I think from 11th to 20th is 2,500. Um, I think. So again, like, okay, say total cash is 3,500 and for a wild card who places 16th, like,
For the
I don't know, like
opportunity to participate.
exactly for the opportunity. So is that really that appealing? And I know it is because there's also these rankings tied to it.
Yeah.
So I know it's more than that, but all of this is just to say I think the appeal and the excitement of the races was even greater with the prize money being so generous.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we've got that
There's T100.
T100. I think no, obviously all press is good press and all forward movement is good. And there's going to be stumbles. So no,
Yes, I
no
love what they're
shade.
doing.
Yeah. No shade is being thrown here. We're just
I
want,
love I have FOMO not doing the T100 races, trust me, like total FOMO. I was so excited to do the tour. And now being pregnant, they're coming up with an awesome maternity policy, which I'm very grateful for. Like they didn't have to do that, you know? So they're doing so many good things for the sport.
they should have
T100.
a race for women who've given childbirth only, professionals. I want to see that series.
Hey, we're getting there. The more of us who do it,
I know.
we're getting there.
So the other aspect, which I think has just been probably what we're speaking of, is more of the Ironman Pro Series, where it's
Yep.
open to everybody. It's very inclusive. There's huge start lists. The
Yeah.
competition at the front is still fierce,
Yep.
and I think it's bringing more international players to USA races. I've seen, and vice versa.
Mhm.
I love that because it always felt like there was a like the North America and then Europe. Like there was like we don't really see a lot of these athletes until World
Yeah.
Kona, and you're like, who's that? Who's that? They won this many races. I never saw them before. So I love the broadcast is getting better. I feel like it's good. I felt like this year Ironman may have kicked T100's butt in terms of the overall series energy.
Yeah.
Not that it's a better overall product, but just the energy behind it. When I watch the broadcast, I feel excited about
Yeah. I agree. I haven't raced a pro series race, but from what I can tell, even the branding, they have all the pro series branding. They've really
it.
taken it seriously and they've continued to do media around pros. I mean, I was set to do St. George and then I last minute decided I was like, okay, no way. I'm 10 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
But even that, like they were asking me to set up my media profile and it seemed like they would be taking photos of everyone and then providing those to us after the race, which is what T100 does as well. So I think it seems like they've really stepped it up in supporting the pros. And then in terms of the actual series, like I think what it's done is provided huge opportunity for maybe that I don't want to call them second tier pros, but like not the Lucy Charles and Anne
Well, yeah,
Howdens of
it's
the
like
world,
Formula
right?
One, Formula Two, Formula
Yeah.
Three. There's a step. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
B-lister triathlete right now. That's the way it is.
Yeah, so I mean, it just provides a huge opportunity for those people to make a name for themselves and even develop because sometimes it's hard to develop when you're always at the back, like very back of the race. Cause man, it's tough back there to motivate yourself. Like,
Yeah.
so I think, but the racing has still been really good. And that's what's cool is it's not like it's all these terrible, slow pros. Like, no, records are still being broken. Like everyone is just getting faster and stepping it up. And it just provides a platform for more athletes to show what they're capable of. And that's been really cool. And I think it's going to be a really nice financial reward for some athletes. I mean, I was thinking about it today like Jackie Herring just took the lead and imagine if she wins a series. It's 200 grand. Like imagine what that not I'm sure Jackie's completely financially stable, but like that's a huge amount of money. That's like
Yeah, that's great.
imagine what that can mean for her, like, and her family's future or just
And
what
kids?
opportunity. Exactly. So I don't know if they, go crazy, buy something nice or put it towards their future. I have no idea, but like that is so impactful. And I think that's really, really cool.
No, I
Um,
think it makes sense. Like I had the luxury of staying with Jackie Herring's parents at Wisconsin when I did Ironman Wisconsin. So I spent some time around them. They're so
great
cool. Like,
people.
you just love seeing good athletes,
Yeah.
good hearts and motives and moral fiber do so well. And
Yeah.
obviously that's why we like you so much, Skye.
Oh, thanks.
You're part of that momentum. And
I have
again,
another thought. Go
yeah,
ahead
go
though.
ahead.
No,
No.
I was going to say the other thing I do like about the series is it's cut and dry, right? Like you win a race, you get the 5,000 points, or you win an Ironman. And yeah, maybe someone wins a race that someone else in the series easily could have beat, but like that's not how it works. It's like if you win, these are the points. So
Yeah.
it's very cut and dry. It seems to really be rewarding consistency. And I consider myself a very consistent athlete, so I like seeing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another thing that I think has been really good. And I've heard other people talk about that. They're like, oh, yeah, it's just nice to know, like, if they finish this place this time, then they're going to move up here to the series. There's no
Yeah.
guessing.
There's no ambiguity there. I like that.
Yeah.
And I think too, like the consistency level, that's a great point because I've been noticing on the female athlete side of this spectrum, some massive races back to back to back to back with Elsvisser just
Oh,
destroying
yeah.
herself and then doing Roth and then going to get on the podium at was it Victoria?
Victoria. Yeah.
Victoria. And then even Danielle Lewis,
Yeah.
like, I don't know of Ironman. I've not seen her on the broadcast doing something like,
Yeah.
even seeing her at Roth, I just can't believe that
Yeah.
she maintains such strong form. Some of the men too, like, I can't think of off the top of my head. Definitely Magnus, Sam Long was obviously destroying the first 4 months of the series and
Oh, yeah.
taking a bit of time off, but getting Lionel back, seeing Trevor come out of nowhere is such a hopeful future for
Mhm.
Nino. The consistency, I think, amongst athletes, like, so I guess this was my point in a long way. It used to be probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I noticed this kind of as an epiphany one day. I was like, think of the Patrick Lange, even the Jan or the Rinny, the T.
Yeah.
I was like, they would race maybe 2 or 3 times a year, like maybe one to just go, one to validate, and then it was a Kona.
Yeah.
It was a punch in the face race where they made their stand and the Titans went to battle. And I feel like now it's like you have to race 7 races a year of mixed medium course to long, or I guess 70.3 to 140.6, or
Yeah.
be part of T100 exclusively. Like, you've got to race a lot more now to make this sport
Yeah.
more viable. But the consistency seems to not have been affected at all.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I've heard many people think like, "Oh, all these athletes are gonna get injured. Like, why are we making athletes race so much?" I'm an athlete who always raced like 8 or 9 times a year and 3, sometimes 4 Ironmans a year over the last 5 years or whatever, but so I disagree with that. Like, I think you can race a lot. You have to be smart, you have to be disciplined, and the biggest thing is you have to fuel. Like, you can't get away with, like, not taking your fueling and recovering seriously, and that even goes for racing. Like, I noticed such a big difference in my recovery when I started fueling even more during races because you just don't break down quite as much.
Yeah.
So, I think it's doable, and I think you can be really consistent, and we're seeing that, and that's cool. And you mentioned, like, Danielle and Trevor, who put on great performances at Lake Placid, like, amazing, but even Danielle is someone who in the past, like, she didn't get the attention that she got from that race because if you throw in a couple people who swim better than her and then can bike just as well and run almost as well, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
her swim still isn't where she wants it. She's working on that. So, like, the Ironman series is
It's,
providing the opportunity for her to go win races and or podium and get that exposure. So I think it's really good. And the thing about all of that for these athletes is like, imagine the confidence it builds. And that building your confidence goes a long way in building your performance. Like, it that fuels your fire in training, it fuels your fire for the next race. And the cool thing about all of this is everyone's going to come back together at Nice and we'll see like how everyone falls out. Like,
yeah.
maybe Jackie and Danielle will be top
Tired.
5 or maybe they'll be like 12th. Like, we have no idea how they're going to fall out. So um yeah, I'm really excited to see how the series shakes out and then see how World Championship falls out because that's where all the best will be there. But in the meantime, it's awesome to see these women and men get more exposure through the Pro Series.
Yeah. We now have, and I believe this is more of like shedding light on a bright future for everything we have in this sport, is we now
Yeah.
have like a seamless narrative to kind of intermingle, and a lot more speculation, of course, and more people involved with opinions who are creating YouTube channels and talking about it on podcasts. So
Mhm.
I think that the future looks really good for everything that our sport is doing for
Yeah.
the athletes, and the age group buy-in seems to be epic. Like, everyone seems to love the personalities and they're finding their own people. So
Mhm.
I think nothing but good things in the future. And when you come back, you'll get to experience it.
I know. I guess my only feedback because I wanna be even T100. We gave some feedback for T100. My feedback for the Ironman series just based on my own um I'm
Watching it.
not watching, yeah, I'm not experiencing it, is it seems like the start lists have been out of control. So if there's some way, I know it's open to everyone, but it's like, is that really the best thing to have 100 men and then have the pro women catching half those men. You know what I mean? Like that's very difficult as a
It's
pro woman, especially.
it's challenging, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it's challenging for the men. The swim start just must be total mayhem. And even navigating the packs, like I can't imagine that. So I think there needs to be some way to just kind of like manage that. But you also, I don't like that start line or start lists were filling up and then like Alistair Brownlee couldn't even get a start because not that it's like, oh, you're a top level athlete, you should get what you want, but it's like we also want the top athletes. Like everyone benefits when the top athletes are at a race. Like I'm sorry, if Lionel's at a race, it gets way more attention. Everyone
Fair.
benefits. You want Lionel at your race. I want to do the races that Lionel and Sam Long do because I know I'll get more exposure. Like I can tell you based off Instagram that that's the case. Like followers, likes, all of it. It's
Yeah.
totally different. So I think that's probably something they know and are having to figure out. And then the other thing that I didn't love when I was considering T100 versus Pro Series, which obviously doesn't even matter now, but the schedule, like
Yeah.
the timing of the races and some of the races were very much not exciting for me. Or I was like, well, I want to do an Ironman 3 to 4 weeks apart to kind of double dip on an Ironman build. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to fly across the world. And that,
Yeah.
I mean,
In
I guess
time
that's part
zones.
of the, I guess that's part of the job, right? But, um,
Danielle Lewis
yeah.
had to do it.
Hey, and she did great. So maybe I just need to suck it up. But like for me, at least where I was mentally, where, like I said, when you're not like super fulfilled, I think you're less motivated to do those kinds of crazy things, right? Like there was a time in my career where I would have done that 5 years ago. I would have done that, no questions asked, right?
Yeah.
But where I was at the time, I was like, this schedule doesn't really excite me. Like, I don't really want to go do Ironman Texas because the course seems really boring, and I've heard all about the drafting and the draft packs, and I just don't even want to deal with that. And anyway,
No, you're
but
right. You're
they're
not.
both series are great opportunities, and nothing's perfect. So
Yeah, I can tell you I've done probably 4 of the Pro Series races, and the swim start, I think at Boulder I had 15 strokes of clean water. That was about it. And
and
none
you're like a good swimmer. You're a pretty good swimmer, right?
it's been brutal. Just and even in the pro briefings, I have made a point at every pro briefing to say, "Hey, we have double the men here
Yeah,
as or maybe another third, something like
yeah.
that. And can we just expand the start a little bit more?" And they're like,
Oh,
"Oh,
like the width.
yeah, the width of it." And they're like,
Yeah,
"You'll have plenty of space. Don't worry." And then we get there in the morning, and they could have opened it up another 30 or 40 feet, and they just didn't. And so,
yeah,
and the people are getting run into docks. So I think that has been a major problem. The swim start with
yeah.
this massive men's field has been a bit sad that they didn't kind of listen to at least me, because I've said it to Paula about every race. So maybe next year they'll adjust it. And then the other thing is like they may not as well even have pro porta potties anymore, because like there's 2 of them for
uh,
so many people. It's like,
for like 500 pros.
yeah, can you expand that a little bit more too? Just saying. No, it's little things, but those little things add up.
No, yeah, you're totally right. But I think the cool part about all of this is I think both T100 and Ironman Pro series, I think they listen. Like someone from Ironman's probably going to listen to this podcast and they'll take note. And I don't know. Like I think they do want to improve, and I totally give them credit that they're doing the best they can, and that they are genuinely helping grow the pro side of the sport, both entities. So it's a great time to be a pro,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can all balance like being really grateful for all these opportunities, but also providing the feedback to make it better and push for it to be better. Cause I think it's really easy as a pro, you're just like, oh yeah, well, I just need to make money. I'll do whatever it takes to make money. And then you're like afraid to give feedback or you're afraid to be critical.
Yeah.
And um, but it's not like being it's not like, oh, this sucks, but it's just like, here's how it could be even better.
Yeah.
Because we, of all people, want the sport to be incredibly successful. And yeah,
We know it's
we are
not
experiencing
all
it
about us.
firsthand. Yeah, yeah.
I
And for
mean,
future generations, like I I know I don't have 10 more years in the sport, so I know I can only imagine how much better it could be in 10 years, you know?
Yeah, what we want to set it up for little baby Trevor Foley to have the best experience once he gets to
Exactly.
our and then so again, just to blanket that, I've never met. I've ended up being so lucky to know so many people who do make those decisions within these organizations, and I've never had a conversation with any of them where they've been like, "No, that's dumb." They've always been open to feedback. So you're right.
Yeah.
They will listen, and they do care so much, and that's the best part about it.
Yeah.
In
They're
this sport.
trying.
Yeah.
They're trying very hard.
And we didn't talk about challenge, which does deserve a lot of love. They're trying to, I think they're going to try to come to the USA, but their experience as an athlete from the challenge races I've done is on par with everything else I've experienced through Ironman or whatever.
Yeah.
So I hope they do well. And I love the people at Challenge.
Yeah. I've only ever done Challenge Daytona, so and I feel like that one's kind of its own well, then it turned to Clash anyway, right? So,
Just licensing names, like it's the same.
yeah, who knows? But I haven't experienced much challenge, but from what I can tell, yeah,
Again, North
treat
America
athletes great.
versus Europe, in
Yeah,
Europe,
totally.
they're
It's
everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah.
So yeah, being able to, and I really hope you do Roth one day. Like that,
It is on my list to do, for sure it is. Yeah.
wow, that race would be so good for you also. Like it's a course built for like just a tough, I just know you would love that course.
Yeah, it looks awesome. I'll definitely do it. Belinda actually messaged me, I think, after I'd announced my pregnancy saying congrats or something, and I said,
Yeah.
"I'll make it to Challenger off, once I'm back racing." And she's like, "Take your time. It'll be here." So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
good. So anyways, just to close this out, and I do appreciate all the time you've given this
Yeah, of course.
Um, you know what standout performances and what things have happened since you've been watching that have just been like blowing you away with where our sport is currently versus even 2 years ago?
Uh, um,
I mean, I'm thinking like Anne Haug, like sub eight,
oh,
like
yes.
she destroyed Roth in a way
Okay.
I could not imagine.
Yeah. Now you got my wheels turning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anne Haug's runtime, whether that course is short or not, it was out of this world. And even if the course was 400 meters longer, it still would have been out of this world for a female pro to run as fast as she did.
And the bike,
And the bike too. I mean, honestly, I can't even register. I don't know what her bike split was, but I just remember the run split because I was like, oh my gosh, like mom power better give me 12 minutes off my marathon PR something. Um, at least. But the other thing that also reminds me is Lucy Charles ran a really good time at Nice Ironman. She was
yes.
2:49, I think. So I think, and then Danielle Lewis, I don't know, did she run sub 250 at Roth or
I don't remember
was
the
she
time.
close? But
It
she
was
ran 2:52 just now at Lake Placid, which looked like an
it,
insane,
it's tough, really hard course.
brutal. Yeah, so I think that realization of like, wow, the women's running, I remember when sub 3 used to be really, really good.
Yeah.
And now it's like you better be flirting with sub 250, otherwise you're just not gonna be there. Um,
10 minutes is not that terrible, I guess, unless it is when it goes bad.
10 minutes is a lot.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing is realizing there's kind of been like this resurgence of bike runners who are able to do really well. I remember for several years there, and I still believe the swim is important, right? Like the earlier you can come out in the water, the better. But like there are many men and women who are now showing that you can be not front pack swimmer and
When
bike
the race.
insanely well and run insanely well, and you can still pick up a lot of spots and maybe even win a big race. So, I mean, I'm not advocating for that. I would recommend anyone who wants to race professionally to go start swimming right now. But like, it is cool. It's kind of cool to see that. It's inspiring for me being someone who's not a front pack swimmer at the moment, especially. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. Like you just kind of see the dynamics of the sport kind of
With
come
technology
and
also.
go. Yeah, and aero testing and everything. Like there's so much going on. I mean, I was even noticing the podium yesterday at Lake Placid, I'm like, okay, so are these the shoes we're all running in now? Like, I don't recognize these new, I think they were Nikes.
Alpha
Like,
Fly 3.
yeah, is that what it is? So I'm like, okay, these are the fast shoes now because everyone was in them. Um,
I
so
just
yeah.
ordered mine today. Like
Okay.
I was like, damn it, I have to get those shoes now.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess those are kind of the things I've noticed. But it's I think it's just always evolving. Right now we're seeing way more strong swimmers, which changes the racing. But again, like there's so many strong bike runners as well that it's not good enough to just be a good swimmer, right? So
Yeah. You've got to be like 85% on the swim, and then you got
yeah.
95% on the bike run for sure. And then you can really be in the
Or
podium.
like 110%, I think, on the bike run. You just
Depends on
gotta
depends on how fast the swim was that day.
Yeah, true. It also depends who's there. So yeah, but it's fun to watch. I'm enjoying being a spectator. I can't wait to watch the
You're
World
probably
Championships.
you're probably so hungry. Like I can imagine you're just like, I can't wait to get back.
Well, like I said, it's mixed feelings because what I'm doing is really cool, but then also sometimes I'm like, yeah, but it is nice not to have to like pack my bike or wake up at 3 a.m. for a
Yeah.
race, like all these things. But
It's
yeah, I'll
weird.
have
I think
yeah.
sometime like it used to be race day was the only day where I was like, I wish I just was a normal person.
Yeah.
Like I wish I could just wake up and give zero shits about anything I had to do today. But today
Yeah.
I've got about 100 things to do before I even start the race.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of nerves to feel. It's very stressful.
Yeah. And if you're not stressed before a full, like, I don't think you're taking it seriously, man. That's full so scary. But
It's
I'm gonna focus on them hardcore for the next 2 years. So I can't wait.
good. Yeah, I love the full distance. And it's funny you say like if you're not scared. I got to a place with fulls where I'm quite comfortable with them, but what scares me I don't know that there's a lot I'm scared of because I've also had things go wrong that I've overcome and I'm like, okay, it's not the end of the world if I drop all of my nutrition on the bike, literally. So like, but and because I know it's not full gas the whole time, but I don't know, it's just a different mindset. For me, I guess it's like the scary part's the end of the marathon.
Yeah,
And you're
that's
like,
what
man, I hope
for
I
me
feel
too.
good.
Yeah,
But
and I hope
up until
after
that point.
mile 16, I hope I got like at least to get to 20, and then
Yeah.
that let's see. Like that's mile
But up
16.
until that point, it's just like, we're just having a good training day. Nice upper zone 2 training day all day.
Yeah, when you see like the first part of the half marathon for an Ironman event, you're like, they don't even look tired, and I'm
Oh,
like,
it's like the easiest thing in the world.
yeah. Wait until you get to mile 16 to 18, then you're like,
Yep.
what have I done?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Well, Skye,
So
any
fun.
plugs for where we can find your podcast? Where is it? Where is it
Yes.
living?
Okay, so I'm on Instagram at Skye Moench, and then my podcast is linked in my bio, but you can also find it on Spotify. It's called Sky's the Limit
Yeah.
podcast. Um, there are some other Sky's the Limit podcasts, so you might have to search like Sky's the Limit podcast, Skye Moench. I don't know, or just go to my Instagram bio. It's also on Apple Podcasts, so yeah.
So you're the limit.
I am the limit, or is the
There is no
podcast the limit? I don't know.
limit. No, there is no limit because
There
it's
is no limit. Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah. And my
All right.
husband just made me an intro for the podcast, so now we're getting really professional.
Ooh, I got to hear that. I can't wait.
It's good. You'll like
I was
it.
like pondering about 3 weeks ago, like, who could we afford to have a super cool voice do our intro? I'm trying to think of an athlete.
Oh, well, there's no voice in it. Matt, he's called himself Matatat. Have you heard of Ratatat?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's Matatat. He would mix all of his niece's gymnastics, like floor routine music.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's talent.
Yeah, so then like he just mixed songs and sayings, like all these random things. Yeah. So
I got to listen to it.
yeah, I'll text it to you.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll hire him.
Yeah, he would do it.
I want him to take blurbs from all of our previous podcasts and make an introduction based off of it.
Ooh. That might be hard, but send him the blurbs, he'd do it.
AI can do it.
Sure, then just hire AI.
I know.
We don't need humans.
You're right. All right, Skye.
Okay.
thank you for your time, and I'd love to get more of an end of year recap of you. So we'll bring you back. And when are you due? I can't do the math.
Yeah, so I'm due November 28th, which is Thanksgiving Day, so that's how you can remember. So end of year, it may need to be like
First of the year.
first of the year.
Wait,
Yeah.
now
Or
you can come to our camp in January now because you'll need it.
oh my gosh, I don't know. I mean, literally, no, that it's a hard no for sure. Like I'm gonna have like a 6-week-old baby or something.
Oh, best time to travel. Ask any parent.
No, but not if like
I'm just kidding.
I've got a lot of healing to do after giving birth. So
I know. Well, fine.
I wish I could be there. I wish I could be there.
Well, we're going to set up Camp Endure All in Beaver, Utah, and you're going to be invited probably March or April.
Oh, okay, that's more doable for me. Yeah.
Endure All, even birth.
Yes.
All right,
Doable.
Skye. Thanks so
Okay.
much. Talk to you
Thank you.
soon.
Bye.